in mechanical engineering in 2011,
Mm-hmm.
almost 9 years ago. And my main ambition was to become a pilot. I never wanted to be an engineer. It was always fascinated by trains and planes, but I couldn't pursue that because of some financial reasons, and also I had very poor planning. I didn't plan that much to do. So I
Mm-hmm.
started like, okay, all my friends were doing engineering, so I entered into engineering. I got into a decent college in India. So I finished my graduation in 2011, and I think by seventh or eighth semester, I got placed in an IT company, like most of the engineers do in India. It
Right.
was Infosys. But because my background was mechanical engineering, I had to do like 4 to 5 months of training on, computer softwares, because that's how it works there. But
Mm-hmm.
luckily or unluckily, the project that I ended up doing at Infosys was related to mechanical engineering. It was for turbo machinery for land-based gas turbines. So basically, the project was for Alstom Power that time. So they were having a gas turbine, wind turbine, and the steam and the nuclear turbine projects that Infosys was like consulting in for research and development. I ended up doing the gas turbine section. So my main work area was turbine section. Provide the consultancy and support in research and development of hot gas turbine components.
As an Infosys employee, what were you doing there on this project? Like, what was your role?
So when I started, like, because it was my very first job and I had no experience in gas turbines, so how they did was like, as a
No,
junior.
but what I'm saying, you were a mechanical engineer, right?
Yeah.
So I would assume as a mechanical engineer working for a gas turbine is more likely versus working for Infosys. So that's what I want to understand.
So basically, we were supposed to provide, there was some work that was outsourced by Alstom engineers to Infosys. It was mostly related to the, how do we say, like the managing the packages in softwares. Like, so they were using CATIA V5 for
Okay,
all
okay.
their modeling and everything. So those engineers were not really good at using computers, or, let's say the softwares, because
Mm-hmm.
that time, I mean, or maybe 20, 15, 20 years ago, we, as you know, mechanical engineering has had like a great shift from making drawings on page to doing it on softwares and
Mm-hmm.
3D modeling. So
So
it started.
so you were doing more of a design work, or it was a more of a project management?
It was basically, no, I won't even call it design. It was just preparing models in softwares like 3D CAD packages. The first
So
few months, yeah,
huh.
it wasn't really
So
much of a deep
In
dive.
Infosys they do take that kind of projects too.
They do, yeah.
Interesting.
So but because like I had recently started, so
Mm-hmm.
I was given this task. So I learned the softwares, the 3D softwares, the CATIA V5 and the Siemens NX.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time I had a hold about what's really going on in 6 to 8 months, we slowly started to support the actual design owner of a component, which was working in like the project was based out of Switzerland. So the Alstom had a, what do you say, the main center in Switzerland, Baden. So there was an engineer who is the component engineer. He's the owner of that component, and there was an engineer from Infosys that will support him for other duties that he cannot perform alone. So that
Mm-hmm.
was my task. So basically, when I started, it was mostly supporting on preparing the models and drawings. Slowly, when I learned, they start giving more responsibility to the designer at Infosys. So we had some like experienced engineers who has already worked on projects for 5 to 6 years. They
Mm-hmm.
completely owned components, although it
Mm-hmm.
was Alstom, the company, or the engines were there, but like there were engineers in Infosys who actually were the actual designers of those components. But those were like who had experienced, who had developed experience, have knowledge about those components.
Got it.
So slowly and surely, like that's how I went up. I learned about the skills of gas turbine, how it works. It was mostly related to PLM, project lifecycle management of the
Mm-hmm.
whole purpose. Like if we are making any change, how does it impact the other
Mm.
components? How does it impact the machining drawing, like the casting drawing, the
Did
machining?
you enjoy that?
I really enjoyed it because that
Good.
was like a completely new thing for me. Studying it in the books and then really seeing an engine work was like a huge experience for me.
Right, right.
So then in 2015, like after working for 3.5 years, I will say, So we had like an on-site, off-site kind of work or like an agreement with Infosys. So there were like few engineers who will work from the on-site location, and they will direct the work, from India to Switzerland. So in
Mhm.
2015, I got the chance to be the on-site coordinator.
Okay.
So me and there were like two or three other engineers. So one was a manager, a lead, and one of my peer colleagues. So four of us were there for 6 months. And there I changed to like project management. Like I didn't do a lot of tasks myself, but I was handling work packages. So if there's a new work package, I had to speak with the engineer, get the requirements, prepare the requirement document, prepare SOW, send it to like offshore team, tell them this is what is to be done. Then they will send me the work, I will review it, I will approve it. If there's any changes that needs to be done, then send it. And then if everything is okay, I'll give it to the designer to as a final submission, and prepare some other managerial administrative things like preparing invoices for hours and everything. So that was my task. And in 2015, unfortunately, Alstom wasn't doing really good in gas turbines because there was already GE and Siemens, like they were way ahead of them. So they decided to sell off their power section to General Electric,
Yeah,
GE.
I know that they sold it.
And yeah,
Yeah.
they sold it, and GE actually never went along good with Infosys. They had
Mhm.
some issues. So, I mean, at that time, it was clear that this is going to be the end of the project. Like the Infosys Alstom relationship started in 2003. So after 12 years, they thought like, yeah, this is probably slowly but surely they are gonna get rid of our work. So we kind of knew like, okay, we need to go check something else. Luckily for me, at that time, Rolls-Royce had set up a research and development center in India, in Bangalore.
Right.
So they were looking for engineers who have like background or knowledge of gas turbine and all these things. So because we don't really have a lot of companies and people who do this work in India, so I got this opportunity. I applied there, and they hired me actually for a compressor component engineer. But I ended up doing turbine design because my background was turbine. So that was
Actually, it's
2016
actually it's
September.
very interesting that you were a mechanical engineer. You went through a software company, end up in a mechanical engineering company, which is I think probably you enjoy more than that's working for a software company, right?
But there's where I have one big doubt. I mean, the thing
Yeah.
was like when I finished up my training at Infosys, like the first few months, I knew like basics of Java or C++ and
Right.
everything, and I
Right.
had like a two-way road, like a road which goes in two directions. I had an option to take a mechanical engineering project or completely make my career in IT, because I have a lot of friends from mechanical background who choose the IT sector rather than the mechanical. But I wasn't really thinking that much. I didn't think too much. The coding and the software skills didn't really hit me. Like it wasn't
Right.
really very.
Actually,
I wasn't really
similar.
enjoying working with that.
Right. Actually, similar. It all depends on what your interest is. So there is nothing wrong and right. I think you went with what you were more interested in. Somebody else did what he or she was more interested in, right? So it doesn't matter. But anyway, let's see. So you were working in Rolls Royce for 3 years or so, right?
No, for Rolls Royce, I worked exactly 1.5 years from.
1.5 year, and then what you did after that?
So in 2018 when I finished my, because they gave me a project and I had to finish it up.
Uh huh.
Well, honestly, when I started working for Rolls Royce, I was excited because it was a big company, big name. But when I ended up working there, it wasn't that fascinating, or maybe I was overexcited.
Yeah.
So like it didn't hit me that much. Like it was okay. Like it was not that fascinating. The main reason was it was a new center. There were things that they were learning. So I decided like I have to do masters,
Okay.
because I had not planned to do masters. It was just going on like maybe I'll do it, maybe I'll not. But when I joined Rolls Royce, I really realized that I have to do masters. The
Mm-hmm.
main reason was that when I joined Rolls Royce, there were like 650 engineers there
Mm-hmm.
out of 1,000 people who were working. And out of that, more than 500 were either masters or had a PhD degree. There were
Mm-hmm.
very limited bachelors and like who hold a bachelor's degree, and mostly those people were from IIT backgrounds. Like
Right. Right.
unlike me, who has done a bachelor from a very
Right. Right.
basic university or college. But
Uh-huh.
but that wasn't really the hurdle, because in terms of knowledge and everything, we were like at the same thing,
Right.
because
Right.
experience
Right.
was
Right.
there, nothing. But
So
this thing always,
why did you decide to go for a master's?
the thing was like when it came to choosing projects or choosing or getting responsibilities, I like always thought that I was getting overlooked because of my engineering background. Like I didn't hold a master's degree, or even
Mhm.
if I had a bachelor's, it was not from a very top notch
Okay,
college, or
got it.
like that. And the second thing was family reasons, because I was working at Bangalore.
Mm-hmm.
It was, and I'm from Punjab, like north of India. I was
Mm-hmm.
getting once a year to go home.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, my family wasn't really, I mean, by that time I was married, so my wife was really not that interested in staying in south of India.
Right,
I was
right.
trying to look for opportunities in north. So Siemens was one of the companies, but it didn't really,
But
work.
not the only thing you can do is farming.
Well, the reason is like we unfortunately don't own a lot of farms.
No, no, no. I'm just kidding. But that's only you can do there.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, that was out of the scope, because
Yeah, I mean,
like, I
lot of lot of engineers end up in South India anyway.
yeah, so I mean, I enjoyed it, but
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's
No,
why
no,
I
I
never
understand.
thought of I never thought of that. But
So again, coming back to your question, what led you to do your masters?
again, so it was the thing was that I want to learn more, because as I told you, when I did engineering, I was not interested in doing it. Like I
Okay,
just did
got it.
it because
Okay.
I wanted to be a pilot, and then after that,
So
I
you thought masters is gonna enhance your knowledge and all that. Is that
exactly, I wanted
okay?
to learn more about,
Okay.
because yeah, I wanted to learn more about,
Okay.
I mean, dedicatedly now learn about the concepts, and
Okay.
and especially into turbine and material.
So what happened after that? You joined your masters at
So I did it. I came to Montreal in
okay.
Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I joined a university here called Concordia University,
Uh-huh.
and I finished my master's. My major was in materials. I like took composite materials. The main
Mm-hmm.
reason for that was like I could have done my master's like or majors in thermofluids as well, because that was my work. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, while working in this field for 6 years, I realized that it's at its saturation limit. I mean, there's not much left in this field in the next 10, 15 years. Like it's gonna be redundant because of the way the things are going in materials, and the way the things are going towards electric powered vehicles, and even aerospace companies are looking towards that.
Mm-hmm.
So like that made me choose materials. Like I wanted to concentrate on composite materials and advanced materials, all this. That's the reason I chose this field, so that I have a, like, open
Let me
opportunity.
ask you this question. Why Concordia? Why Montreal or Canada? Why not US or UK or Australia? There was a
uh
reason?
there is a reason. It's about like stability. I always had a like second doubt about US. I could
Okay.
have come to US as well, but again, it was like my bachelor's. I didn't do it very seriously. Like I just did it.
Yeah.
So it
No, no,
required.
but I'm thinking, was it did you was there a deliberate decision on like let's go to Canada, not US or UK,
No, it was a
or was it like okay, I found this university, let's go there. It doesn't matter.
no. It was not like I had a couple of other universities as well, but main target was Canada. But I was wanted to end up in Montreal because
Okay,
Montreal was a hub for aerospace. That was
okay,
the main reason.
Okay, okay. I understood. Okay, got it now. But so what happened once you finish your masters, and then let's come to your questions like what are you going through now?
So the thing is, I finished my master's in January. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
this year, 6 months ago,
Right.
and I started to look for opportunities to work here because there are
Mm-hmm.
a lot of companies.
Mm-hmm.
But I gave few interviews, and I got few positive outcomes as well.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, at the very wrong time, the COVID situation
Right,
hit
right,
the whole
right,
industry. So like at one position they put it on hold, and later they canceled it. So
right.
the main reason is that the main difficulty that I'm finding right here, which I didn't research that much. I always knew
Mm-hmm.
that in Montreal there's one thing which is not there in rest of the Canada and rest of North America is language, because Montreal is a French dominated area. Like so,
But
whole,
whole Canada is almost like that.
I mean, if I go for a job outside of Quebec, they don't really need French, or it's not a mandatory thing.
Okay, okay.
It's
Oh,
an asset.
here is mandatory.
Quebec is French. Like if you are like working outside of the Greater
Mm.
Montreal area, people
Mm-hmm.
don't really speak English that much.
Okay. Oh,
Although
really?
my
Mm.
work is not really does not require
But
me to know.
right. So what I'm saying is it should not be required by company. Like you should know French, or is it?
it depends on company to company. Like if you're if look, I'll tell you,
No,
like
I'm talking about like big companies, right? Not like a
yeah,
small window companies. Like
yeah, exactly. If I give you example of, like, there is Bombardier here, there's
right,
Bell,
they don't. They
there-
need.
well, if you see the requirements, they say bilingual, which means you need to be
Okay,
French. But
okay.
the thing is, even if you don't need French, it's okay. They don't
That's what
really
that's what I'm
mandate that.
saying. The big
Yeah.
companies probably don't need. Yeah.
But if you the main hurdle that I have is not actually using French, because I can learn French. It's not an issue. I know basic A1 level as well. It's that some of the companies, their projects that they do, they need security clearance. They have a Canadian
Yeah.
security level 2
Yeah.
clearance, and they need permanent residency or citizenship.
So let me ask you this question. I think I understand your questions, your point here. So Simar, I have this question actually. There was an interview I did last week from a guy, manager at Lockheed,
Okay.
and and you can go through that interview. I think if you want to
Premise.
skip, you just can go to like 19 minutes or something where he talks about how he hires people and all that. And one
Mhm,
of the thing he says, he talks about is companies like Lockheed. Okay. And when I say like Lockheed, you can name it then, right?
mhm,
Especially the companies who have defense contracts. And most of the aerospace companies have defense contracts. And if you give my example, I work for Lockheed, right?
mhm.
The only reason I got hired here is because the one of the requirement was I need a US citizenship.
Okay.
They won't hire me otherwise, or to anybody.
Mhm,
And as he said, if you go to that interview, it goes to more details because that guy is the hiring manager, so he talks about that. But I think a same question goes to you, exactly the same question. Because and I actually this question is very important because a lot of people who are doing their engineering and aerospace and all that, they say, hey, I want to work for Boeing, I want to work for Bombardier, I want to work for Lockheed, I want to work for Raytheon, I want to work for Northrop Grumman, because
mhm,
that's what you will end up a job, especially if you are in the area of um, advanced materials, anything that has to do with your degree, that you eventually land up in those sort of companies, right? You will have that problem, or you will face that problem. Let me give you an example here. 2 weeks back, we interviewed someone
mhm,
from a very good university.
mhm,
Actually, it's from Stanford, a Canadian citizen.
mhm.
Okay. And we are talking about US because she was a Canadian citizen, not US. She had a PhD from Stanford. We couldn't hire her just because of that. Just to give you an example. Okay. So we are talking about not how much you know, because I believe you know a lot. That's not the question here. And actually, to be honest with you, when you are talking in that way, I will put you in the pool of people who are extremely brilliant, who know everything. And as I said, you should watch that interview. I speak to that person, like, there are many international students who are awesome. And he says that, what can I do? So what I'm saying is, if I put you in that pool of people, trust me, your competition is not smaller because you will find equally capable people out there. More so now, after if you go online, you see 2 weeks back, GE laid off 5,000 people.
Yeah.
Boeing has laid off. And these are citizens. Okay. So where are they going to go? Right. And these are people who have worked in these companies for just like you, actually much more, 15 years, 10 years, 18 years, 5 years. Plus, then this pool of people who are coming in looking for jobs, right? Who are citizens. So think about yourself now more so where, because I can see that now that I when I got hired at Lockheed, I gave my interview in December. I joined like 4 months back, but at the time, I can imagine still the situation was okay. But I had to rush to my citizenship. I had to get as soon as possible, and I was lucky to get into it. I was fortunate that I did it. because I was waiting. I was just thinking, should I do it? Should I not? And I said, let's go ahead, because there was this opportunity came and Lockheed said, we would like you to come. We can wait for you. And, and I said, okay, if you can, then I can apply and do that.
Sure.
Same thing goes for you now. Exactly the same thing. So don't, at this point of time, don't think because people will hire you. No, it doesn't work that way, because there are thousands already in line which are equally or better than you, right? So let me tell you, I say that to a lot of time. Any company doesn't hire you because you are a US citizen or Canadian citizen. It hires you because you have a knowledge. You make money because of your knowledge. That's number one. Because otherwise you will see a lot of US citizens, Canadian citizens are homeless, right?
Yeah.
So number one, that's the first criteria. If you pass that criteria, what is the hurdle? Hurdle is, are you a Canadian citizen or US citizen? So you have to pass that hurdle. If you pass that hurdle, trust me, skies is the limit.
Amit,
Because, yeah, go ahead.
sorry to interrupt you. Actually, my question is like, it's not about getting. I knew this thing like the
No.
moment that I did.
So what I'm saying is, what can you do now to say, okay, I know this problem, but how can I figure this out?
Yeah.
Right? That's, I think, yeah, go ahead.
No, my thing is like I am actually in the process of getting my permanent residency because it's not, unlike US, it's not that
Yeah.
a hurdle in
Yeah,
Canada.
yeah, yeah. I was coming to that then. So
So,
if that is the thing that you have to figure it out first. If you do that, let's say if you have a PR,
mm,
right? Still, it won't allow to you work for Lockheed,
yes, exactly.
right? Still, it doesn't allow to you work for, because in US the way it works is you get your PR, it takes you another 5 years to get your citizenship. That's a
Yes.
normal process. And now even the the list for transition from green card to citizen, I have few friends who are in that phase.
It's even longer.
It's taking longer just because of the backlog and the things. So again, point here is, do all this thing as soon as possible, because you don't want to get the rewards when you are 50 years old, because then it's of no
Exactly.
use, right?
Yes.
So again, what I was my suggestion to you would be is, you are doing the right thing. If you are getting your PR, probably that helps to you to work for some subcontracts, not directly for those companies, but for subcontracts, right?
Subcontract, yes.
That may help you. And I don't know when you will get it and all that, but definitely, looking at your background, looking at your portfolio, I think I would hire you, to be honest, in my team, if I have an opening in that area. But again, that may help you to do that. But I think I don't know much about, but how much is how long is gonna take you to get a PR and all that, and are you willing to wait for that? If you're not, what are you doing? What are you gonna do now? Because you can't stay at home without
Yes.
a job, right?
So that's the main question, Amit. Like the permanent residency and citizenship is, I know it's gonna. I'll give you a number. Like in permanent residency, I can expect it in next 7 to 8 months, which is
Okay,
gonna be there. But by the time I get it, is going to be around 1 year since I finished my master's.
right,
So my biggest fear or my biggest question is, in these, like it's already been 6 months, I haven't worked in a technical field. I am
right,
working, but it's not a technical field. It's
right.
just
I
like
know.
a
Yeah,
aider.
yeah, right, right.
So that tenure is gonna stretch to 6 more months. When I let's say I get a PR and then I approach the same people, like like there
Right,
are recruiters who said like, when you get a PR or even you got accepted, let us know. We can make it.
right,
But the
right,
thing is, my fear is like this 1 year gap is kind of a gap, technical working gap. I'm working, but not in the field that I want to excel my career in. Will that impact me? Or so that's my biggest fear. I can be 6 8 months. It's not.
yeah. So here's the thing. I don't think that you're gonna impact the recruiter, but it definitely gonna impact your mental health. Put it this
Exactly.
way. I actually am more worried about that part versus the other one, because I have seen that. I have personally gone through that, so I know what is gonna happen. I can tell you.
Yeah.
You will not realize it. It will happen. It will happen. If you have to stay like this for another 6 months, trust me, you will be out of your mind.
Yes.
And
Exactly.
I don't know you, but look, talking to you, it seems like you are a very ambitious person. It's going to impact you much more than anybody else. Okay. So how to understand that, how to solve that would be my question. So my
Yes,
answer to you, right. So what I will do
yeah.
if I was you, I would definitely try to engage myself into things, into, because especially with the COVID, there is not much you can do also, right? You can't go out and do. So I would definitely keep on improving my portfolio, which gonna satisfy me that at least I'm engaged. So I'm gonna get a Six Sigma certification online.
Mhm.
I will try to get a project manager certification. I will try to improve my skill set. I will keep doing that online as much as possible. And the reason is number one, because it puts you on a schedule. And once you complete it, you get a certification or award that satisfies you. Okay, I didn't waste my time. I did something, I learned something, and that something goes to your CV, right? So
Yeah,
it will show as you have achieved something. And this is something that you will expect that once you are out in the job market is going to help you also. That's number one. Number two is it also keep you engaged in your daily to daily activity. So see, you have to, what I'm trying to tell you, make you understand is all you need to do is train your brain in a way that's gonna help you to skip that depression or that uneasiness that gonna come to your gonna subside in your brain in next 6 months or maybe a little longer.
yeah, exactly.
So a couple of things that I would definitely advise is, if you can get an admission to